or whatever that looks like. I set up my next day to be that block, and then I go to bed and I'm able to kind of recover, and then I wake up in the morning and I'm the worker. Mm-hmm. This is just, I don't even need to know. I just do it and check. I'm a box checker. And so I think that having those two very big distinctions is essential. And I've tried many times to get rid of this piece because sometimes it seems redundant, because I also have a schedule on my phone. I have the CRM. So it seems like I would have enough control over my schedule, but unless I actually, this is the boss. And unless I take the time out to be the boss, I somehow lose my way every time. So figuring out what redundancies are worth it, because sometimes there is a little bit of overlap, but it's worth it. So, but the main key is whatever works for you. So I have this very analytic
question about that.
Mm-hmm.
You're a box checker, you're checking your boxes, and you're fighting this feeling of, I work really hard all day, every day, and what am I accomplishing, and where are my accomplishments? When you check your boxes, do you do something for yourself? Do you take a moment of reflection? Do you pat yourself on the back? Do you do some online shopping? Like what do you do for yourself?
Celebrate.
Right, to mark the moment.
So if there's a particular box that I'm really unfond of, I might have some sort of mechanism like that I would do it right, before lunch so that I get a reward afterwards or something like that. But again, that's gonna be just being intentional and knowing, what is it that really motivates you? How is it that you respond to those things? And, even like, so when I go out and I network, I try to dissect, what I have in that day. And there are some things that are maybe more inspiring or just kind of, creative than those. I try to do those before I go to the networking events, so that I'm kind of like juiced up on that feeling. And then there's certain things that are mundane that you have to do, but they're not that hard. Again, they're very much like just box checker things. And I try to do those afterwards because I might be a little bit more zapped. I've given a lot of energy, but my day's not over, so I need to make sure I go home and don't just crash. And then, so I try to set up like some of those easier tasks is how I do it for that particular, networking type event. But that's just going to be whatever, ends up working for you. And, as far as being intentional about the hats that I use at the same time, like what kind of, out of here, but what kind of hats do you guys think, mesh well? Because obviously, there's the worker and the boss, but we're so much more than that. We're the big thinker, we're the visionary, we're the admin, we're the legal team that's trying to protect ourselves and make sure that we're implementing the right things. So, do you guys have hats that you intentionally wear together or feel combined well, or do you feel like you're oftentimes wearing the worker and the boss, or the worker and the boss together, which are not compatible?
I feel like the biggest hat that you need to wear as a person, to be honest, is, and I think this goes with anything, and it's funny because Mandy and I take dance lessons, right? I'm not a great dancer, but he always says, if you're new, go to the beginner class. If you're past beginner, go to intermediate. If you're advanced, go to the advanced class. If you're sick of the advanced class, go back to the basics, because you're going to want to learn the basics again. And I think us as a business owner, the basics is show up and work. Like, and people think they're working, but they're sitting in front of their computer and they have their phone out and they're looking at notifications from Facebook coming in, and then they're kind of typing, and then like, oh, this, oh my God, Susie, what a cute dog, oh my God, cool. And then they put their phone down, and then we're not really working. Like, we're in front of our computer for 8 hours a day, but we're probably working 30 minutes a day, and we're convincing ourselves, because we like to lie to ourselves instead of being honest, that we're not actually working, and we're wondering why the bills aren't paid, and we're wondering why money's not coming in. And we need to take this phone and put it away in a drawer, because guess what? You can sync your messages to your computer. So if a message comes in, it's going to come to your computer. There is no reason to be on Facebook or Instagram. Even people that are like, I got to do social media, I got to get myself out there, I got to answer these. No, you don't. Just like Mandy said, block that time for a certain time in the day. That's when you pull your phone out and put it away, and it's going to be really weird. Your thumb's going to be twitching, and you're going to be reaching for stuff. Man, I need to do this. But
and you have the shiny objects.
Yes, but we don't work. And I guarantee you, even myself and even the most successful people that you see aren't working all day long, because we have this thing that's distracting us. And even when you're working, we need to work intentionally, and there's going to be fires that are going to burn, and we need to realize that. And you just have to let those fires burn, and that stuff's going to go away. And it's, you might not get paid, or people may be pissed, and focus on the stuff that needs to be done and get it done, and don't worry about everything else, one at a time. Like when you're cleaning your house, right? You're like, my house is a mess. What am I going to do? Dude, I'm just going to pick up this one thing and I'm going to throw it away. And then you just pick up one thing at a time.
Don't
pick up this.
Gotta keep that one.
I'll give you a new one.
Back in 2019, I had an opportunity to remake my life. I had been a live-in caregiver for my uncle, and he passed away at the end of 2018. And so this was, solopreneur, just a whole new world and things. And so I set on the same path to go intentionally. And the strategy that worked for me, and I'm still working my way back to really get the consistency of it, was a book called The 12-Week Year.
That's a good one.
And in that one, the one thing that works for me, and I know, because given what you were talking about, we are distracted. I also work in an industry that I really have no control of when something's going to happen.
That's true.
And so I have to be ready to be interrupted. And so one of the things that Brian Moran talks about in 12-Week Year is set your priority goals and then book those times. So for instance, what you talked about, responding, answering emails and things, on my calendar, those are marked as communications. Now, recently, I had 3, one in the morning, one at noon, one in the evening, and I went through some training with Cherie Sauer, and listening to her talk about her method, her ramp method, I realized I was probably giving myself too many distractions. So I narrowed it down and I said, look, I've got one shot, to respond to things. And I put it right where I normally like to have breakfast. So it's like I'm having breakfast and I'm getting some communication stuff done so that I can focus the rest of the time. And then the other important thing is always have that project time where it is 3-hour block. You take your phones, you shut everything off, you push them away, you don't look at anything. That's your focus time. And then set your daily agenda a week ahead and say,
Yes.
I have 3 things to accomplish this week. And I know I'm going to get distracted. I know there's a lot of things going to interrupt me. But if I get these 3 things done, it was a good week. Because 3 things a day, 3 things a week are about all we can handle.
Good.
We often think we can do more than we can in the hours that are available.
Yeah.
3's a big number.
Yeah.
I kind of want to highlight something that you were talking about, because I think that there's 2 pieces of this. There's grouping tasks together that makes sense. And I think everybody can kind of figure that piece out. But I think the part that you were talking about that's even more important that people don't often think about is thinking about the tenor of your day. So in other words, like you were talking about, like just because you have 2 tasks together that make sense together, should you do them in the morning or should you do them in the afternoon or should you do them, right before lunch? But thinking about how can you build up energy so that you can really work, especially that afternoon block is really, really tough, right? After we come back from lunch and you're in that food coma and you're like, I'm gonna sail through the next 3 hours and not do much, so thinking about what tasks can you put in that afternoon block that are low energy tasks that you can kind of get through, what tasks can you put in that morning block that are high energy tasks that'll build you up for that afternoon block. I think that that's a really important piece.
That's really good.
For touching on that again. I think it is as well. And again, it just goes back to intentional. And it's going to be different for everybody. I mean, I could give you the recipe for me, but it's not going to be the recipe for you. You're going to, some people function the best at morning and some people function best at night. So it's just really, again, having something that is intentional, working it, and then maybe throwing it away, but intentionally. Not because you got lazy, not because you just don't want to do it, because you're like, that doesn't work for me. And so now I'm going to replace it with something that maybe is going to be better for me. But just making sure that you do have something. Because if what you're doing is just having the big goal and knowing the big why, you're going to work really, really hard and for a really long time. And the chances of getting there are 50-50.
Yeah.
So, in order to really make sure that you're working harder, or don't do that. Don't do that.
Work harder, not
You're
smarter.
working smarter, not harder. And so some of that too, that just, kind of building the right momentum, I think is helpful not only throughout your day, but then what you couple with that. So like the boss, the big thinker, the visionary, which all are actually very different, even though they sound like the same person. But the boss really needs to be in touch with what like is month and day goals, so that they, have that big picture, but also very concise, because you get too lofty and like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, it means nothing anymore. So I think that is, and then like the big thinker needs to know quarterly and yearly, and then the visionary needs to know like overall direction, the big why. What is this company here for?
Right.
And then how do I continue to keep giving that message? And then of course the worker really needs to be dumbed down. So if you're trying to be the worker and you're thinking much outside of what is happening within the hour or within 30 minutes, you can pull back and reflect on the day occasionally, but really you shouldn't even be spending that much time high level of day. It needs to be more like I'm thinking hourly and half hourly, and that's when you really get the quota. Does anybody have anything to say to that?
Well, don't they also say 45 minutes at a time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah.
Is it optimum?
Well,
I think so, yeah.
Pomodoro
Retention.
is 25 minutes.
25.
Yeah.
And then 15 off?
Mhm.
I like that. Something you said triggered what Nick was talking about earlier. He was talking about cleaning the house.
Mhm.
And I know, like, for me, sometimes even that can be overwhelming, right? Like, if my goal was to clean this room, and I'm like, I start with like, okay, I'm gonna collect all the name
Right.
tags, but then I'm like, oh, like, this is gonna take me a certain amount of, and I start getting into that more high level thinking.
Yeah.
And I stopped doing the task that I set out to
Yes.
do. And so I think, it's very challenging to do, but when I can set for myself, okay, I'm gonna plug for 3 hours, maybe give myself an 8-hour workday and be like, okay, this particular day, I'm a worker bee. I'm gonna mow the lawn, I'm gonna clean the basement, I'm gonna, whatever it is. And once I commit to that, and here's where, oh man, like just the thought of this is giving me like shivers, but like put my phone away.
Yeah.
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 And just clean the house for 8 hours straight
Yeah.
or whatever, but like immerse in that project and just like at every juncture, just be like, nope, I'm the employee. The
Yeah.
boss said that this is what I'm working on today. And the boss hasn't come back down to tell me that I can take a break and, put breaks in there and like, oh, I'm going to take a 15-minute smoke break. Not that any of us smoke, but like a smoke break.
Yeah, whatever your needs are.
Exactly.
Make sure that the boss is considering those.
Right, for sure.
Come on in. Water's fine.
We're at Action Business Furniture. Are you here as a customer or you? Oh no, grab a chair and join us.
Yeah.
We're a flexible lot.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just want to say one more thing on that. If we can't put our phones away for the day, none of this matters. If you can't do the simplest thing of put your phone away and not be on Facebook or Instagram, then none of this matters. If you can't do that one task, then you might as well just throw the freaking day away. Because you're
Well, that's
wasting
a lot.
hours and like hours of time. Put that away, figure it out how to put it away and get it out of your mind. And then that alone is gonna open up, like, oh my gosh, I have like another 8 hours of my day. This is crazy.
Somebody pointed it out one time in one of the books about if you really went back and found circumstances where because somebody didn't have their phone on them, something really tragic happened. And what percentage?
He will lose deals.
I mean, there's,
Well, you can have it because it's gonna ring, like it's gonna ring, and it's in
Yes.
the drawer, and then
Right.
you're
If you're
gonna
not
hear it.
actually physically
There-
holding
there-
it, that is, yeah.
Yes.
there's definitely
That's a
some
good point.
exceptions, I mean, if Facebook or Instagram is one of the tasks that you have to do because of the kind of business that you're in.
Yeah.
I end up spending like 60% of my time, with council, as I talked about earlier, that's speaking to people online. I mean, that's how I reach the public. So that is one of the tasks that I do. But like you say, that it depends on your business, right? If not being on the phone means that you're working, then you probably shouldn't be on the phone.
Yes.
Yeah, and
And even doing that in a disciplined way.
Right.
Right? I can hop
Yeah.
onto social media with the intention
Yeah.
of
And get
outreach
lost.
and turn into consumption
yes.
very easily. So that's a whole different.
And a phone call and a text message is, way different than somebody doom scrolling for even an hour. You just doom scroll for an hour, you're like, oh my gosh, what, it's
Where'd
4
it go?
o'clock now? Yeah.
Where'd it go?
Totally.
Does this
And-
mean that you give up cat videos too?
No, cat videos can stay. That's the only thing you can do.
And that's where, if I don't utilize this tool, which again, I've phased out several different times because I thought that I had them figured out in other categories, but they allow me to veer between worker and boss too much. So this is the essential missing link between pulling all those together in the intentional way where, I am accomplishing the goals. And, and something like that, I think it's made to be addictive. So it's doing its job.
Right.
And I think that part of that, it can be helpful to maybe move some of that onto your computer, which has it's a different stimulus. And so if you're trying to do business things online, if I do it on my computer, I find that that instinctual thing doesn't get triggered as much. So, little things like that. But again, it's just being intentional because that might not work for you guys. That might not work for your business. But this is very granular. So I'm getting down into 15 minutes and I've got it all written out. My mentor, she likes to operate in a totally different space. So every morning, which I like to be my boss at night, she likes to be her boss at morning. And she does this wild, empty piece of paper, and then she just draws a bunch of wild circles on it, and some of the circles are big and some of the circles are small, and then she just writes prompts in there to prompt her what that was supposed to be. Big circles are really important, tiny circles are not as important. And then as she does them, she fills in different colors with the circles, and she loves it, and it works for her. For me, every time I look at it, I'm like, ugh, I don't even want to see it. But that's intentional and it works.
Yeah.
So, I don't have any magic prescription. I just have, some of the ideas of being intentional can help with grouping in the right ones, like admin and legal. Some of the admin we have to do ourselves. But some of it, like when it comes to bookkeeping, taxes, especially things that, can get you into trouble.
Pushing that off
Yes,
the plate.
unload it and really have the ability to calculate, what would be the loss for my business if I do this incorrectly?
That's right.
And then also, maybe for some of the more mundane clerical tasks, what do I actually value my time and what could I get this done for?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll be very surprised
Yes.
at how much you're cheating yourself, because that's really what you're cheating your business, you're cheating your customers, you're cheating everyone if you're allocating time that's so valuable to spend on what you really do, your mission, what you're
Right.
really good at, if you're allocating it to these things that just kind of gobble up so much of your day.
And if you need some help with that, just figure out what you want to get paid per hour and then go and look at things and ask, what would it take for me to do this? And what would I make if I worked for that hour?
Yeah.
And then figure out, what, it's cheaper to have somebody do my laundry than it is for me to get distracted doing,
Yes.
Totally.
so, I gotta go down and then I don't do it. And things, and that was, there's a laundromat just down the street, 3 blocks from me. And one day I just did the math and I said, you know what? It cost me $20 a week to drop off the load and pick it up the next day.
And it's gonna give you an
Clean
hour or
folders.
2
It's gonna
hours
be an
back of your
hour,
time.
hour or 2 of my time back.
And mental clarity
Yeah.
as well, which is then, what's the cost of that?
Right.
What about VAs?
Oh, virtual
I
assistants?
have one.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are getting really great results from them. They're accomplishing a lot of different goals. And when you add that cost comparison in, it makes it a lot more doable for people like us who, yeah, it's great and my time is worth this. But also my bank account says that I have that much. So so we're dealing with a lot of different nuances. So I think that's a great avenue to be collaborative and then meet your needs.
VAs for me,
What's
it's,
your-
oh yeah,
Oh, no,
sorry,
you.
go ahead, that's
Well,
fine.
it's very customizable.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've hit on many times in different aspects of your presentation here today is how do you customize? Very easy.
Wonderful.
And so it really pumps up the value of it for whatever you think it's gonna ding you. It brings back multitudes.
I love that feedback. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
And that's my experience.
So VAs, and I have a different opinion than anybody else. I am still in the starting phase of my business, right? I've been doing it for 2.5 years, almost 3 years, which it seems like a long time, but it's not in a business. And when I got to the point where I needed to hire somebody, I looked up VAs. I'm like, man, these VAs are crazy. It's $4 an hour. It's like $5 an hour. But I mentally can't personally, and this is my opinion, I ended up hiring somebody for $25 an hour with benefits, and I gave her full benefits, medical, dental, vision, and paid her $25 an hour to have somebody in the United States. And it hurt my bank account significantly, but I feel like I'm helping her out. She gets to be at home with her family. She's in the United States. Like, I personally think you should spend more money and keep the people here, and let's pay the people that are here that are really
And a caliber
struggling.
of, you know, when you do have that more like collaboration, where you're doing more of that real partnership, you are, I mean, what she brings to the table is phenomenal. I've been astounded at the collaboration and her gusto and how much she values that opportunity. So it is something really special, and I think that should be a really big goal for all business owners. If you can't do it, first off, but that let's not stay there.
Yeah, I guess I'd really like to highlight that intentionality that, you know, we're small business owners, we're not large corporates. So I think for all of us, we would all agree that the primary reason we do this is because we love whatever our business is. We love our customers. We want to help things. And sometimes we have goals like that are, you know, these are not business goals, but they're just as important for small businesses. That's what makes small businesses so unique and special, is to be able to think, you know what? That it's going to cost me more money, but I think that it's important to hire somebody here in the United States to do this job, and I think it's worth my money to do it. You know, to do exactly that. I think that that's a big piece of intentionality as well.
And it was really scary. It still is. I stroke that check every month, and I'm like, sure, it would be nice to pay $5 an hour.
Well, and I think that scales both directions.
Right.
I think that you could take that and go even higher. You could say, here's somebody that I can pay $100 an hour to.
Yeah.
Right, but what value are they bringing to the table? Because if at $100 an hour, they're bringing in $10,000 an hour.
And that's what she's doing, yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
so, but it scales the other way as well. And I think there are certain tasks that you don't need somebody that's $25 an hour. You potentially do have somebody that's like, you know, on their phone, and they're just, I've seen like the walls of phones that are just being scrolled and like all this stuff. And I'm not, I mean, I know that Data Money Mike, who's I'm sure very tuned in, he pays auto clickers. He pays people to do, I don't know if auto clicker is the right word, but like there's so much nuance to that. And I don't want to, I mean, we could get into the weeds on that, but we're actually running close to running out of time. I'd love to just take this out with like put a bow on it. So the big thought that keeps coming back to me is the intentionality, the big picture, right? It's like, why am I even doing this? And I don't, like in this moment, I don't have an answer for that, not because I haven't processed it, but because I want to put it out to our listeners and also here to the table, like, why are you doing this? Why are you in business? What drew you in? And we don't have enough time to go around the table. So I really want like one or two people, maybe some of the quieter folks that like haven't weighed in yet. Like, why did you make the jump? Why are you in business in the first place?
I'd like to hear you talk about what made you get into this in the first place.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as I said before, I'm a city councilman and I'm also a business owner. I would say that both of them I got into for the same reason, which is serving the people that are around me. You know, for city government especially, that was my primary driver. I spoke a little bit before we started the session about my previous work history. I used to work for USAID for the federal government. Even that I got into because I wanted to serve the people. I thought that would be the best place to do it. I found that wasn't necessarily the case. But so I changed streams and thought, you know what, let's try local, and that's why I'm serving now on the council. And believe me, from you know, going from what you said about a cost benefit ratio, I'm working usually 40 to 60 hours a week, and I get a volunteer paycheck of about $1,500 a month. You know, that's the dedication that I have towards the city council piece. Luckily, my small business is keeping up and it's doing very well. And we serve a lot of pups here in the area, and I'm really happy to do that because, you know, pets are such an important part of our culture, such an important part of our community. Being able to service those pets and being able to provide those haircuts and taking away, as you were pointing out, you know, taking that hour or two out of somebody's day to help them wash their dog or something like that provides so much more to the community. So I'm really glad to do it.
Right? How much like value did we get? We're like, I can't have this hair on me and
We
spend
tried
hours
to
cutting
set
these
our own
dogs,
dogs
and
here.
my
We learned,
back
like,
hurts.
We love your profession.
It's terrible.
That's what it is. It's people think it's simple, but it's not.
It's
You know,
not. It's a nightmare.
I have one last thing that unless you had
no,
something,
go.
but that I'd like to send everybody out with is no matter how much you decide to implement block scheduling into your, minute or your big picture, everyone needs to do it for the last hat that we wear, which is us as a person.
Mm.
We become our business, and that is dangerous. And so we really, really, regardless of how much you implemented somewhere else, make sure that you're using that block schedule to guard some of your time. And again, if it feels really hard or maybe impossible, or you've tried and it just keeps not happening, really frame that in a personal way. Again, I'm a person, and say that to people, say that to your customers. I'm a person, and because I'm so involved here and I hold myself to such a high standard, it is essential for me to hold this space for myself and high level of my business.
Right.
So I really, really protect this time, and I would appreciate you, or whether that's night, whether it's gonna be different for everybody, but whatever you decide that time is, block it out.
And with your family too, just like you're saying, because like a lot of people have kids or they like work from home nowadays, and they need to realize just because their cat's in the house or their kids in the house, their wife's in the house, whatever it is, like
Or grandbabies.
or whatever, like that, like this is your time to make money, and they need to respect that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, huge topic. Obviously, we need to keep this going and talk about this in more. There's so many paths
Yeah.
that we can go down, but we are at the end of the hour. For anybody that tuned in, we had a little glitch with our experiment of YouTube. Did not go well. We're currently on Facebook, so we caught the second half. We'll kind of piece it together, hopefully. Next week, Jill Olson is going to be here. She's going to be talking about Washington Policy Center and why free market is vital to every industry. So it's a huge topic. Excited to have her here for that. And we're at Action Business Furniture. Want to thank Nick again for the food. So absolutely
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
Spot on. Appreciate that. And Mike, take us away.
Oh, look at that!
Keep your money safe with Stash Cash. Stash Cash. Get the Stash Cash app with Nick. Monopoly Man had a mustache. He has one too. Hey, everybody. I think you all learned something important today, and that's called value. And because of that, you should like this video. Remember that sharing is caring. You know the right thing to do is to subscribe. So you should do that. Till next time, folks.
Awesome.
Yeah. This is my favorite part of this.
All right. In all seriousness, if you enjoyed the content, share it with somebody that you think would value. Come join us at Action Business Furniture on the corner of Park and Sprague, and we'll see you all next week.
Yeah,
See you all next
fantastic.
week.